Welcome to Visual Basic. We are now doing the coding for the wood cabinets. As you know, we did the form before, which appears as such. And the new thing that we have in this form are the checkbox, the radial buttons. Let's go back to the coding. We're starting the coding the same way we started the last program, with the option strict on, which once again means that it prevents conversion between numeric types and string types, and it prevents data type conversions that would cause a data loss. And this once again always goes before the public class. The public class is form wood cabinets, which is this, our interface for our programming. The first thing we have to do, as always, from last program and forward, are declare variables. So one variable is dec feet as decimal, and you can read the rest. One different thing that we're doing in this program is we're declaring dec pine cost as decimal equal to 300D. That's 300 decimal. That would be $300 in our. Then we have the dec oak cost as decimal, and that would be 500 in the form of decimal. We need it as a form of a decimal because when you're multiplying a decimal times a decimal, you're doing currency, so you do end up with decimal places. And then the last one is the cherry wood, which is as a decimal too, and that would be 650. So if you chose this option button, it's 300. This option button is $500 per foot, and if you chose cherry wood, it would be $650 per linear foot. The first thing you do is you enter a number when you're running this program. So you didn't enter a number here. In the past, if you didn't and you clicked on the calculate button, it would give you an error because the program would just stop running. There'd be no place for it to go. In this case, when you click on calculate, it gives you a message box, enter the linear feet of the cabinets. So say I put in ABASD, calculate, enter the linear feet of the cabinets. So you have to put in feet in order for this to work. Otherwise it will not work at all. So when you say if is numeric, text feet dot text, this is text feet dot text, and it is asking in this line if text feet dot text, if this box has numbers in it, if it is numeric, then we could drop down to the next line. If it's not numeric, this is your first if then else statement. If it is not, then it will go down to the else, and it will give that first message box, and it tells you, excuse me, this is the message box. It goes to the very last one. Say enter the linear feet. The next question it asks is, it says, okay, so if it is numeric, then it will say you're going to convert. Say we put in 3 feet. We're converting to decimal text feet dot text. Once again, that is like our last program, which we talked about procedures, converting them to a string, from a string to an integer. In this case, we're doing it from a string, and we're converting it to a decimal, which once again is part of the Visual Basic library. And so 3 is a text feet. Right from the text box, it's a string. This string is now going to be converted through a procedure to a decimal, and it will be stored in the variable called dec feet. So now dec feet would have 3. 3 would go here. 3 is originally string. We convert it to decimal and is stored in a variable, which is a decimal. The next line we have to ask is if dec feet is greater than 0. So on the very first one we said is if is numeric, and if it isn't, we had enter the linear feet. The next if is if dec feet is greater than 0. If it's not greater than 0, it will go to the next else and display a message error which says you entered 0 or -1 or whatever, enter a positive number, and it will give you an input error. Let me give you you will read about message boxes in your textbook, but say we put the number 0, for instance, and we calculated. This text box, the first thing it says is message box, you entered, and this here is deck feet to string. Well, we entered 0, so it would say you entered 0. And you notice it has a space between entered because when you're concatenating these strings, you need to leave a space after the quotes so that everything doesn't go in as one sentence with no spaces. So it's saying you entered 0 feet and enter a positive number. Let me click this over here. Put that 0 back again. And then it says input error. Input error refers to the message or title bar of the message box. Enter a positive number as part of these strings that were concatenated. You entered 0 is over here. Enter a positive number is here. So once again, look at if you have any questions after you look up more details on message boxes, you can come to me and ask me. You know, you're also able to put in not only this, but you could put in symbols or other things in message boxes. Your book will go through that in detail. And also be sure to go through the if statements, if then else statements, if else statements. There are many different versions. I would like you to go through them, and if you have questions, once again, send them on to me and I will help you go through the differences. Your book has many good examples of this. So if we got through this if statement, if is numeric, and it was, we drop down to if deck feet is greater than 0, that means it's not 0 or a negative number. Then you can first start with the logic with the if statements. And if you notice the if statements, the furthest if goes to the last else. The second if goes to the second to the last else. You can work outwards and map where the if then else's are. And every if then else statement needs an end if. Okay, let me bring this back up. So say we clicked on rad pine and we clicked a 2. And we have pine starting. So it's saying if rad pine dot checked, is it checked? Yes, it is. Then deck cost per foot equals deck pine cost. So deck cost per foot 2 is here. So deck feet. Oh, excuse me. If rad pine dot checked, then deck cost equals deck pine cost. The deck cost of the pine would be 300. So once again, if rad pine checked, then 300 would be stored in deck cost. If we chose oak, it would ignore this because this condition wasn't met. It would drop down to else if rad oak checked, and it would look up the cost of, it would say if rad oak is checked now, then the price would be 500 stored in deck cost per foot. The last else if is rad cherry, so the radio button is cherry wood at 650, and in that case, deck cost per foot would then be 650. So what you're doing is you're storing in the 3 deck costs the price, one of these prices depending upon which deck cost, which rad radio button has been selected. So let's stick with oak for now. So what would happen? It would say if rad pine is dot checked, is that true? No. So it drops down, else if rad oak dot checked, that is true. So then deck cost per foot will now store $500. Then it will not even go to this else if rad cherry, is that dot checked? No, that's not checked. So we'll end the if. Once the if statement is checked, is completed, it goes to the coding underneath the if. The first if statement is saying, after the if statement, it says deck cost estimate equal deck feet, which is 2, times deck cost per foot. The deck cost per foot, if you remember, was $500. So we're multiplying 500 times 2, and when we calculate, we should get 1,000. Then, in order to get the 1,000 over here, LBL cost estimate dot text, that's where this 1,000 is sitting, is equal to deck cost estimate, which is a decimal dot to string. We're converting it to a string, and once again, C in quotes, just as last time, means we're using currency. So it adds in the $sign, the comma, and the decimal point. Then, once these two lines are completed, it drops down to this end if, and we end sub. These else's we would not have used these because these were associated with the if statements up here, and we had already gone through those ifs, which were associated with these two else's. So therefore, after this last line was done here, you drop down to the end if and you end sub. The clear is pretty self-evident, and the close is form cabinet. Well, yeah, so you're once again setting focus on text feet when you click the clear, and we're clearing out the cost estimate label over here. Alright, that's it for this. Once again, contact me if you have any questions. Go through your book, look through your coding, and I will help you with anything that you need. Thank you very much, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye.